Alright, it says to solve the equation 3x squared plus 35 is equal to negative 22x. So we see the x squared and we think quadratic equation. And remember, to solve a quadratic equation by factoring anyway, we follow these four steps. We first want to put the equation in the form here, ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So we need to bring that 22x and put it on the other side over here onto the left side. And then we'll factor that left side, set each of the factors that we come up with is equal to 0, and then solve each of those equations that we get from those factors. So here's how this is going to look. First step, add 22x to both sides. So that gives us 3x squared plus 22x plus 35 is equal to 0. And notice we put the 22x in descending order in the middle there so that it would match this form right here. We do that because now the next step is to factor, and when we factor a trinomial it needs to be in descending order. Now you can use the factor by grouping method, but usually factoring by trial and error will work pretty well, especially when the leading coefficient is a prime number like this one is 3. That helps because we know this is going to be a 3x and a 3x and an x. We know that 3x times x is 3x squared, so we don't have much choice. Sure, we could put the x here and the 3x there, but ultimately that'll lead us to the same answer. So 3x times x gives us 3x squared. Then we move to that last term. Well, first we notice that both of these signs are positive, so these are going to both be pluses. We know they have to both be pluses since these are both pluses. Now we're looking for two numbers that multiply together to give us 35. Now we can't just assume they also add together to give us 22 because the leading coefficient isn't 1. It's a little more complicated, but not that bad. We start out just working on this one. Just plug in two numbers that multiply together to give us 35. Well, try 5 and 7. That'll definitely give us 35. So we already know that, we checked this by the way, we checked to make sure we get 22x in the middle. We could just FOIL to find out. Well, we've already verified that this times this is 3x squared, so that's covered. And we've already verified that this times this is 35, and that's covered. So the only thing left to verify in the FOIL method is this times this, which is 5x, and this times this, which is 21x, and those are the middle terms that you would add together, the like terms. 21x and 5x, well, it does not add up to 22x, so we struck out there. But if we try this instead, 3x and x, it's still going to be plus and plus. Let's just move the 7 over here and the 5 over here. 7 times 5 is still going to give us 35. And like before, this we already know is 3x squared, and this we already know is 35. So we still just check the middle term here. This is 7x, and this is 15x. Okay, 7x plus 15x. Yep, that gives us 22x. So we know this is the correct factorization, and you could just do the FOIL method out in its entirety if you're not confident that this is the right factorization. Alright, so we've taken care of step 2, and that's usually the hardest step, and to factor. The third step was to set each of these factors equal to 0. So we've got 3x plus 7, that's equal to, set that equal to 0, and x plus 5, set that equal to 0. Because remember, the product of two things, this thing times this thing, is equal to 0. The only way that can be true is if this factor is equal to 0 or that factor is equal to 0. Right? The last step is just to solve each of these little baby equations. This one's a little more complicated. We subtract 7 from both sides first. We get 3x is equal to a negative 7. And then we divide both sides by 3, and we get x is equal to a negative 7/3. And over here, we subtract 5 from both sides, and we get x is equal to a negative 5. So those are the two solutions. Now, be aware that with MyMathLab, they tell you to enter the solutions separated by a comma. So you would just enter negative 5, comma, -7/3, and it doesn't really care which order you put those in. But, so this is what you'll want to enter. But if you do this, which is a common mistake, if you put the answers in parentheses, even though you've got the right two numbers, my math lab is going to count that wrong. Because my math lab thinks that you're giving it an ordered pair, x, y, and you're not. You're giving it two separate x values. So be careful that when you enter it in, don't put it in parentheses.